18.
We're seeing Asia definitely open up on the back foot. It is off session lows, I have to point out, but the cuts are still pretty deep.
Credit Suisse for the Swiss government is large enough for it to be backstopped by the government. So I don't really think that you are going to see a failure of that.
Basically, the market conditions have to be conducive. And towards that, we continue to work. We are reasonably confident that this should occur in next couple of months.
This morning, we got the news that ADIA has invested about $500 million in Lenskart. That values Lenskart around $4.2 billion.
The broader market is still under pressure. The mid-cap index is down 60 points. Now the Nifty is falling, down about 25 odd points.
Every time the Fed hits the brakes, something goes through the windshield. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. You have a series of embedded risks that have piled up in global markets.
Today morning in the block deal window, you saw almost 3.7% of the total equity change hands, and this happened in that particular window, like we mentioned.
Today, there's a lot of move towards FMCG and consumer stocks, the perceived safe havens of the market.
Stocks are trading at near decadal low in terms of valuations. BPCL at about 1.3 times, IOCL at about 0.8 times.
Tanup Bagchi, who's currently the ED at ICICI Bank, and has been appointed as the next MD and CEO at ICICI Prudential Life Insurance.
We have the Nifty, which is up around 17 odd points. But remember, it's been a tight range. It's been volatile within that range.
You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Closing Bell. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me in the newsroom, my colleague Surbi. And joining us from the newsroom floor is Mangalam. Guys, hi. Good afternoon. And we are starting on a pretty good note, I have to say. At the day's high. Actually, I'll come to the Indian market in a bit, but let's address global markets first because that's the more important bit, right? And it's good news. It's all good news so far. The big epicenter of the crisis, which is Credit Suisse, that stock is trading up to, at least the last time I checked, over 20%, was actually about 25% higher, started 40% higher. And that is the big one, which was troubling markets. I looked at a big measure of European banks. That is up of almost 3% or so. That is point number 2. We had two statements, I think, which have stabilized sentiment a little bit. One was, of course, not a statement, but the action of Swiss National Bank lending to Credit Suisse, or rather Credit Suisse borrowing those $54 billion or so from the National Bank, the Swiss Central Bank. I mean, it's not about, the amount borrowed, because it's not clear whether they even need the money. This more seems like a statement of intent from the central bank, the Swiss Central Bank, that we will backstop the situation come what may. At least that's the way I read it. The second is the Saudi National Bank, again SNB, but this is the Saudi National Bank chief, in a way walking back on his comments from yesterday. That interview is what really started the panic yesterday. He basically said that we will not invest more in Credit Suisse. But then, that is the portion of the interview which got highlighted. He went on to say we will not invest more because we don't want to be in violation of the rules. And that completely got sidelined in the general panic that we were seeing yesterday. And today we have an interview to our sort of global network, CNBC, in which he's clarified that, this is not what I meant. And I think that has also soothed sentiment. He's also said some positive things about Credit Suisse, in which they hold a meaningful chunk already. And of course, apart from this, there are no fresh headlines, at least nothing which indicates trouble. We are in the third bounce on the Nifty, third bounce of the day, and we are trading at almost at the day's highest point. So the bounces are being sold into, but I would kind of say that a bounce is due. I mean, this is a bounce, but this is nothing, right? I mean, we've lost about 800 points in the last 4 sessions, so a more meaningful bounce is due. But if you're trading, and I said this yesterday as well, you need the Nifty to trade above the short-term reversal level, which is 17,220, which is still some distance away, and that is where I guess there'll be more selling pressure which starts to come in. Only above that, I think, at least in the short term, you're going to see a bit of a trend reversal. But it's been intensified sort of selling over the last couple of sessions, and a bounce cannot be ruled out. We are, I think, starts perhaps, just perhaps, starting to see the first signs of that. Surabhi.
Hi, Prashant. Good afternoon. You know, I don't want to be the party spoiler here, but I can't help but point out that it's also the weekly expiry.
Yeah.
And this market has been so heavily short. I mean, the FI long short positions are at sort of, you know, the extreme end of bearishness. And it was almost a given that at some point some of these shorts have to cover. They were just looking for that excuse to come in, which was the news, as you pointed out, European markets stabilizing and these additional clarifications coming in from the Saudi National Bank saying that, look, you know, we are at 10%, can't go above 10%. It's a regulatory thing. And that Credit Suisse itself never came out and asked for assistance. That word kind of rattled people yesterday. So the Saudis are saying that they never asked for assistance to begin with. Anyway, the point is that banks are seeing a big move as we speak, and a lot of that would be some of the short covering, perhaps HDFC Bank, SBI. So a lot of the gains are coming in from these stocks. There is a little bit of buying on a TCS as well. That's quite evident. But today's other big trade has been this move to consumer stocks. And Mangalam and I were discussing that in our digital segment just a while back. A lot of these names, Asian Paints, HUL, quite a few of them, Britannia, all on the upside. Of course, you'll hear more on Titan as the show goes along. But that's the other part of the market that's looking good. Even metals have paired off the losses. So if you had seen stocks like Vedanta, Hindalco, Nalco in the morning, then you know, the screen was extremely weak. Now even those stocks are not down as much. The metal index is trying to make a bit of a comeback, though of course this is the weakest part of the market. Mid caps, not too bad, just about a 0.4% kind of an up move on the mid caps. The breadth is still quite negative. There's no taking away from that. Just to point out some of the major movers and shakers today in terms of stocks moving on news, just two come to my mind. One is Patanjali, because of what happened. Exchanges decided to freeze off the promoter's shareholding. Again, there's a regulatory issue over there. They're not meeting the minimum public shareholding norms. That stock was down. And the other one was the Motherson because of a block trade that happened. So two stocks that stick to my mind in terms of news. But otherwise, Mangalam, I mean, what would you say? I guess everyone's waiting to see whether these gains can be held on to.
Yes, that is true. You know, if you looked at the market over the last few trading sessions, you would have seen that it's the second half, sometime around this time itself, where we get the European markets opened, and there is a fair amount of declines out there, and that reflects in our market too. But today, European markets have opened well, like Prashant spoke about, Credit Suisse, etc. And that means that those who were bearish on our indices have been caught on the wrong side, as a result of which we've seen a near 200-point recovery. The question is whether this sustains or not. It is weekly options expiry. We have seen a fair amount of writing at the 17,000 and 17,050 calls. There is a fair amount of open interest still outstanding out there. So if the market sustains between 17,000 and 17,050 for the next 15-20 minutes or so, we could see an up move at 3 p.m. and that could lead to further short squeeze or not. But, you know, from the levels which we bounced today, 16,850 is an important one as well. Why do I say that? Well, because 16,850 is very close to the September 2022 lows of 16,750 from where we bounced back. And this was also the start of the decoupling for the Indian markets as compared to the global markets. After September 30th low of 16,750, we saw a rally of 13% in October as well as November. And on December 1st, we hit a fresh all-time high of 18,887. From there, we've corrected about 10% on the Nifty, and the 10% mark, which is 16,998 thereabouts, is usually seen as a big support area for our markets as well. So we are bouncing off supports. The question is whether this sustains or not. The mid-cap is doing well. We have seen some writing at the 17,000 put as well. Bulls believe that now that we've climbed this mountain of 17,000, at least for today, will it sustain all the way into the expiry session or not? If it does, then there is room for further short squeeze as well. Back to you.
Okay, all right. So let's see how some of these events play out. Here's the lineup, and it's a packed 60 minutes ahead. ICICI Prudential Life picks Anup Bagchi as the new MD and CEO for the company. Bagchi will take charge from current MD and CEO N.S. Kannan in June. The street cheers the leadership change. Trade adjustments for FTSE and Bharat 22 indices will come into effect from tomorrow. All the details coming up. Zee Entertainment surges in trade as Bloomberg reports that the company is set to repay IndusInd Bank $10 million. More details on this in just a bit. We'll, of course, discuss the top portfolio calls with our alpha manager of the day, Rupesh Patel of Nippon India Mutual Fund joins in. All this and much more over the next 1 hour.
All right, let's get Mitesh in then and ask him whether this will last, this bounce. Mitesh, people are waiting to